Welcome to Gen Z Hoops, the Gen Z basketball, coaching, and sports business show. On this podcast, you'll learn from professional players, coaches, and executives from all over the world and see the court in a brand new way. And now, joining you courtside, your Gen Z host, John Hartofilis.
Hey, Ryan, what's going on?
How you doing, man?
Dude, super hyped to have you on. I mean, it's always cool talking to someone else that's, also in Gen Z, doing some really cool stuff. Obviously, just to be a manager at such a high level, you have to be obsessed with the game. So definitely really fun to connect with you and obviously have you on the show. Definitely going to jump into some really cool things.
For sure. No, it's awesome to be here, and I'm just great to talk about this stuff with you. So.
Oh, definitely. I mean, let's jump right into it. I'm curious, kind of maybe, obviously, there's a lot of passion that, like we said, that goes into wanting to become a manager. I'm curious, maybe when you were in high school, right, what did that look like for you and saying, okay, when I go to Gonzaga and I'm a freshman there, I want to try to be a manager. And I'm curious what that process looked like for you.
Yeah, that's the history that is just kind of I kind of been thinking about lately, and I didn't always want to be a manager. I wanted to be a walk-on. I wanted to play basketball. I looked at schools up in Iowa for D3. It was just out in the sticks. I didn't feel like that was going to be a big enough space for me to succeed. And then I looked at Oklahoma, Tennessee, and then the Zags. And I went and met with Coach Barnes, met with Coach Kruger, asked them to be a manager or walk on. They said they didn't have enough spots at the moment. And then I came here, and one of my friends at Boise State, Derek Alston, who might go first round hopefully this year, he knew Leon Rice, their coach, and then Leon Rice knew one of the coaches here because he used to work here. And he just kind of like, hey, is there any spots open for him and stuff? And look, grace of God, he gave me a spot here. I came here for like a freshman orientation weekend down back in April of my senior year. And I met the dude for 5 minutes, and he gave me this job. And then I worked summer camps, and he's actually John Jacobs. He actually moved from here to go to the team that beat us in the Natty at Baylor. So it was kind of interesting to think that my boss who hired me at first beat me a national championship, and we'll probably get into that more. But yeah, it's been a blessing. I've been trying to be a walk-on and just working on basketball since I've been here and working out. I love the sport. I love the game. But just being a manager has been just awesome this past 4 years.
I can imagine stuff. I mean, definitely thinking about just how much your game must improve just by obviously like you're seeing it all. You're seeing obviously great coaching, great players, right? You're all around all these high level guys. I can imagine there's so much good basketball going on around you. I'm curious, maybe when you're a freshman, obviously, right, you get this opportunity to be a manager. And I know it's something, but everyone thinks that maybe it's something that's easier that people can just sign up and do. It's hard, right? Not everyone that wants to be a manager can become a manager. So it's something that it's a huge misconception that I'm sure I'd love for you to talk about. But I'm curious maybe what those first few days of you joining and being a manager at Gonzaga, what did that exactly look like those first few days?
Yeah, it wasn't until a few months after the fact that I was a manager that I realized that I skipped probably 1,000 people in front of me just by knowing people. And that kind of just goes into sports where it's not what you know, sometimes it's who you know. And when I realized that, I was like, dang, I'm very lucky. And I actually started working basketball camps in my summer before freshman year. So I started way before the season even happened. For camps, though, it was a lot of hard work. And I've worked camps before in the past, but this was just unreal just because the way camps are set up here. There's no basketball sports team in Washington besides UW, and they're 4 hours away. So Zag camps are legendary. So I was just working my butt off over there, and it's a lot of small stuff, just getting inventory, T-shirts, making sure parents and coaches are good. But then the first couple of days here, it was kind of a culture shock. I'm just going from high school basketball where everything's kind of like not lenient, but it's all like a schedule. It's all you kind of go straight from school to practice and then home and you play games. So it's not anything you do more of. But here I was doing laundry, rebounding every night, getting food, stocking fridges, a lot of stuff I just never really thought of before. And I was still in that mindset of being a basketball player where it was like, I don't really like this, but I'm here. So it took a while to kind of reboot and get used to it. But after a while, it kind of just snapped, and you had to get used to it fast, because if not, then you're going to be left in the dust.
Yeah, 100%. I'm curious maybe to see maybe how your role kind of evolved, right? You were talking about maybe at the beginning doing inventory and stuff like that. Obviously, as time went on, right, you go from being a freshman manager to right now as a senior being a head manager. I'm obviously definitely, I would imagine so much change there. And you definitely saw a team that was really probably progressing night in, night out with a roster full of guys that would go on to play in the NBA and stuff like that. So what did maybe that progression for you, right, going to sophomore year, junior year, what did that look like in really starting to take on more responsibility?
It was fun. It was kind of cool to like look forward to being a head manager, look forward to be a sophomore manager. Because freshman year I did during practice, I was up in the bird's nest doing film, rebounds, points, assists for practice, and then I kind of went from waters and that stuff, doing laundry a couple times a week, rebounding every day. And then sophomore year, I was on the court freshman year. I mean, my sophomore year, so that was a big change. It was cool to actually be on the court and kind of better listen to the coaches and kind of understand the game better, being around the players, just giving them water and just kind of like not even just being a manager, like, but being like their hype up man, get them high fives, getting everyone turned up for practice when everyone knows the days where people were kind of down and just kind of worn out. So I kind of like got to the point where I was learning the mental side of the game, where it's less of just being quiet and doing your job to be able to be a big part of that process. And then being a head manager now with COVID, this year has been a rough, a lot of long hours, a lot of just random tasks that kind of just pop up randomly. But it's been a cool process to kind of like have the coaches have more trust in me, where it's like, hey Ryan, do this, instead of hey, have this person tell Ryan to do this. It's kind of cool to have that relationship with them. And with COVID, I feel like I'm comfortable with asking them for networking skills, for recommendations, just even getting a better housing spot for next year. So it's been an awesome experience.
Oh, no, definitely so cool. And I'm curious, right? We're talking about this kind of networking aspect of being a manager. I'm curious, is that, I mean, maybe before COVID, it was probably a little bit easier, but were you really talking to managers from other teams, or like, is there kind of like a brotherhood there, maybe both in Gonzaga, both outside, where like there's some people that want to be a manager, but now guys that are there kind of just talking to each other, kind of learning from each other also, but just like they're also just being friends. Like, is that kind of a reality in that sense?
Yeah, I've definitely seen that more within our program, where the older guys, they moved on to work in Nike and do some engineering stuff, but they still come back and we're still best friends. We used to hoop all the time when the guys were in film or after practice, we're on 2-on-2, 3-on-3 with the manager squads. So that relationship has been awesome. And I think it's just the Zags are just a big, happy family, not even with the basketball program, but with the whole school. Like everyone's just so nice and welcoming and homey and whatnot. When it comes to other managers, I didn't really start networking with them until about last year when COVID hit, when I was in Las Vegas for the WCC tournament. And they have like a big spreadsheet with just different managers throughout the nation, and there's different like webinars and workshops that they offer, and different like coaching, just kind of like one-on-one talks. And then I've been doing a lot of networking with one of my sports management classes this semester, where it's like an online database with different mentors around the NBA, NHL, MLB, just kind of different marketing, public relations, sponsorship type stuff. I've been calling them here and there. I wish I would have taken advantage of more when I was a freshman, sophomore, but I feel like this past year I've done a lot more networking. I feel like with LinkedIn too, I kind of like was just been working on it the past couple of months, and I've just because of the March Madness, I've gotten so many connections like you, and I'm glad that we connected and we can be here right now. But it's kind of cool being where I'm at right now and kind of meeting so many different people.
I was about to say you're definitely something's going on with your LinkedIn networking, because we obviously got connected for this show just a few days ago. So
Exactly.
really cool how that worked out. I'm kind of curious about it before we jump into, right, like you said, just this past March Madness, just this past season where you guys were undefeated heading into the tournament. Even before that, though, before we get into kind of all the big moments of this year, you obviously got to saw a bunch of big moments because you guys never lost more than 5 games, right? Your freshman, sophomore, junior year, right? You were part of a winning program all the way through. I mean, before we get into the big moments of this season, is there something maybe what was the biggest moment maybe going into this, maybe from your first 3 years that like really stood out to you?
For sure. I think there's 2 experiences that really kind of like really pop up in my mind. Is like freshman and sophomore year when Rui was here, we would work day in, day out, like, and just seeing his progress, even with Joel, even with Brandon Clark, and all those guys, just seeing them where they were when they first got here and then seeing them when they left was just amazing. Like Rui didn't know English his freshman year. He had trouble in some classes. He had trouble with the basketball thing, but now he's a lottery pick playing for the Wizards, doing really well, playing with Westbrook and Bradley Beal. It's just an amazing, just honor to be able to see him do that. And then probably last year we went to Brigham Young in Utah, BYU, and that was my first game. I actually traveled and we lost, and it kind of gave me a wake up call that college basketball is kind of like it's anything can happen. And we saw that at this tournament. We saw that against Florida State both years. And sometimes if you don't come out hitting hard first, no matter how many wins you have, those other teams can kind of punch you back. But it's not about if you lose, it's about how you bounce back. And that's why I think next season is going to be fun for us. And we're going to see what happens after that. So.
I mean, definitely. And I mean, there's definitely so much to go into that. Obviously, there's so much bad. I mean, this show could be hours long if we were to talk about all the, the great basketball that you've seen over the course of your 4 years there. I'm kind of curious, maybe just start, I mean, obviously with this season, obviously, I'm very curious about this season, but in particular, maybe some things that maybe people don't talk about, right? Everyone's kind of focused on the tournament. Maybe like, right, you got you guys' first game, right? You guys beat Kansas by 12 points. It's important to know, right, going into this, that this would be one of the closest games of the season because there was only one other game that was decided within 10 points. You guys obviously won that one too. So I'm kind of curious, maybe that first Kansas game, right? Was this a season where you guys kind of felt you had a special group and like undefeated was a possibility going to the tournament, or was it something where you thought, okay, like it took a few games to get to that point? What was that first kind of game like? And after beating a good team like Kansas, where was kind of the team at?
Like I already knew we were going to be good. Like practice was good. There was sometimes we had some lapses, but it wasn't until Coach Few announced that Andrew could play this year because of the transfer portal and everything with COVID. And that's when I was like, dang, we're going to be really good. Because him coming from Florida and playing the SEC, starting all of his 2 years, and then seeing him play in practice, I'm like, dang, this is going to be a really fun year. And then once I saw Jalen dunk over Marcus Garrett, I was like, all right. In the first 30 seconds, I was like, yeah, this is going to be a very fun year. Kansas, though, I was a little worried. I was just like, it's Kansas. Like, Bill Self, like, they're an amazing team. They could have won it last year, honestly, if there wasn't a COVID pause. But I think once we just came out and just punched them in the mouth real quick and saw that, and then Auburn two just great programs, and then going into and then even West Virginia, like one of my friends actually plays for them, Taz Sherman. We used to play in high school together, and I knew that he's a work dog. He works hard, and I think beating those couple teams at first in Iowa after our COVID pause also, it kind of showed that we want this more than everyone else, and our team is just so meshed together that nothing can hold us back, and just being able to win every game. And I feel like it's very not humbling to say, like it's not fun winning every game sometimes by 40, 50, 30, because it gets tiring in West Coast Conference. And it's like people are out to get us, and that's why we have to hold our heads higher than everyone else, because like I said, college basketball is it's a weird time. Like it's not you're not going to always win games. You're not always going to have your best game too. So but I think this year we were pretty confident that we were going to go undefeated.
In you guys' third game, obviously, right? You guys are playing a really good team in West Virginia. You're down 5 at halftime, right? And it's the only game that you guys obviously ended up winning that game, but it's the only game you guys won all year by less than 10 points, right? Because you guys were blowing, like you said, blowing a lot of teams out. And how important was it to win that game going into what would be a long stretch of not playing games?
I think for me personally, like I said, one of my friends played for that team, and I wanted to beat him. I love that dude, but I was not going to lose to him, and I knew Culver, and they had some great McBride. I think they have some great players on that team. They should have gone farther in the tournament. I think it was when Jalen had that little like skid on the ground where we thought he was injured, and when he came back, like also when he came back that second half and he was coming out, he wasn't gonna play a crazy game. I didn't think he was gonna come out and drop another 20, but the fact that he came back after that little fall that he had and a little like twist, and still put up some good numbers and still work his butt off, it went to show that like if our freshman point guard can do that, then we can really do anything. And then those last minutes though, they were tough. I was kind of biting my nails a little bit, but I'm very glad that we got that W, because that team was pretty good. And
Definitely. And obviously, right after that, right, you guys go on to this little code break. Can you kind of explain maybe, because a lot of us, right, maybe from home, we're seeing on Twitter, okay, where there's a code break here, that these games are getting canceled, kind of everything's all over the place. But obviously, on your part, right, your whole schedule, your whole week gets turned upside down. Maybe can you kind of walk us through maybe what the news of that COVID break looked like for the whole team?
yeah, it wasn't until like 2 hours before the Baylor game when they announced it. And I remember all my friends at school where they were already getting ready. They were all dressing up. They were all playing their BP or whatever they were doing, and they were getting ready for the game because it was going to be like a 11 o'clock game in Spokane. So it was pretty early, and people were up early again after it. When they canceled it, I kind of knew it was going to happen. I was like, there's no way we can play this game no matter how bad they want it and how much the TV money wants it. But there's no point of risking the other team or more players than our guys squad. But that next week we had to cancel 4 games, and they weren't big games. They were different, like Idaho and a bunch of other like Northwest, like a bunch of random teams. So that kind of messed up our schedule and it kind of gave us lost some easy wins, but we definitely bounced back. And then I think that we should have played Houston earlier or Villanova or Memphis in that team, but I think people were scared of us. I think Houston wanted to win the American Conference, and that's why they didn't want to play us. Villanova was scared of us because they wanted to win their conference. So it was a rough 2 weeks. Luckily, I didn't get it, so I was good. But I was kind of worried for that next game in Iowa just because being sick in any capacity and then going on to play a big game across the nation is not always the best thing sometimes. But I know our guys were ready and they fought and we pulled it out very well, honestly. So
obviously, right, every college basketball season is difficult. It's a grind, and there's so many games, and right, and it's very taxing. But obviously, the season was a whole different level of maybe having a code break like that and having to navigate all that stuff. And I'm sure you guys played teams with the same situation, and everything was kind of turned upside down. The one game I think is so interesting, and it's so kind of maybe symbolic of the whole season was the game against BYU. Right, you guys are down 12 at halftime. Right? BYU was up 12, and then you guys end up outscoring them 47-25 in the second half, blowing them out in the second half to win the game. After that one, right, that must have been a huge win. I mean, I'd imagine locker room was crazy, right? Everyone was probably going nuts. Can you kind of talk to us a little bit, walk us through that game and maybe how big that was for the rest of the season?
Yeah, they just came out hitting shots. It was just like last year when we were at BYU, my first traveling game. They just came out and were just hitting shots. When you shoot 25% from the field in the first half, it's pretty easy to kind of get away. And I think, like in all honesty, we could have lost that game. BYU, they had a defensive player of the year in our conference, which could have been Jalen Suggs also. Halftime, it was kind of nerve-wracking just because we've been in that same position 2 years ago when we had also a Final Four potential team that lost to Texas Tech with Brewery, BC, and those guys, and we lost to St. Mary's in that championship game. And so anything is possible, but I think the way we bounced back and held our heads on high on that game, Corey came out, hit 2 or 3 huge threes, just daggers, didn't even touch the net. And then we just came back and bounced back and had great possessions on defense and offense. Transition points was insane. Just our raking and our help side defense was amazing. But that was a great win. That was a good win to kind of like get us ready for the tournament, kind of go into our little break, our little quarantine period in our hotel before March Madness. That was unbelievable. It was such an amazing experience and just cool because we don't like BYU. I don't think many people like BYU. I do respect their program, respect their coach, respect even their football program, but when it comes to basketball and we are in those lines, BYU is not our friend. So
definitely see the competitiveness, and it's awesome hearing about that. I'm curious, right? So now we're going to the tournament. Maybe I'm curious, maybe what your roles are. Maybe just from the round of 64 all the way through. Did they kind of change as times go on? Right? Obviously, is there more of a staff? Did all the managers come to into Indianapolis? Like, how did that all work for you guys?
Yeah, I was actually outside of the bubble, and I had a rental car, and I was doing grocery runs, doing a little bit of laundry here and there, kind of getting smoothies, acai bowls for the guys. So outside the bubble it was fun because I could kind of go network, kind of walk around Indy. I was still being safe. I was doing school, honestly. So I was busy doing that stuff, but going to games was awesome. That was my first March Madness of my college career. And I was in the fans. I'm just glad that we had fans and just kind of seeing my guys just on the court. So it was hard not seeing them for a while. We would text back and forth, FaceTime every once in a while. It was weird because we were in the hotel right next to them. So it was like we're less than 400 feet away and I can't even see them, but it was cool. I wish I could have been in the bubble, and like it is what it is, but I feel like that they needed me out to the bubble doing the manager stuff, and I'm going to do what I can and sacrifice when I need to be part of this team. And I think that was just a cool experience because I got to at least be with the coaches' wives, coaches' families. I met Sean Farnham. I met the Toronto Raptors GM Masai. I met a bunch of just random people who was just kind of like in Indy. It's March Madness, so it was cool kind of being able to network in that sense, be there in the moment, honestly. And I think the best trip, the best part of that trip was a UCLA game, probably for everyone. But that was probably the coolest thing that I've ever experienced my entire life.
And we're definitely going to get to that. And I don't want to keep our audience in suspense for too long. They could, of course, skip ahead, but we'll pretend like that's not possible. Because one thing you did mention, right, of course, is your schoolwork. And that's something we completely neglected. And I apologize to Gonzaga Office of Admissions or Office of Academic, whatever it might be. I'm curious, right, because obviously being a manager, right, is basically a second full-time job, right? If being a student is one, being a manager is a whole other thing because of all the responsibilities you have. Can you kind of talk to us a little bit about how you maybe balance, maybe school, obviously, and being a manager? Was kind of practice always like at a set time? Like how in terms of traveling, there's so many things to kind of get into in terms of how kind of strenuous that was. But of course, obviously, we were able to get through it and do great on both ends, both as a manager and as a student.
I appreciate that. Yeah. Freshman year was tough because this school was not easy. Like it's a private school, only about 7,000, 8,000 undergrad. It's difficult. I wouldn't say it's Ivy League type, but it's definitely with the Marquettes and the Georgetowns or whatever, the Jesuit schools. And it's not easy. And freshman year was tough. A lot of core classes would be science, English, writing courses. And it was kind of hard because I went to a college prep school in high school down in Houston. So I was used to the hard curriculum and whatnot, but it was just different being on your own. You usually go to school, you go to practice, and then you do homework, and then you go to bed. Here, I had to find times in the morning, but in between classes, during lunch periods, watching lectures or watching videos or doing homework during my lunchtime, before practice, after practice in the locker room. It wasn't until about last year where I kind of went to a counselor and kind of got my schedule all like organized and started working ahead on stuff. But I feel like that was very helpful. Just for my schoolwork, I've already bumped up a couple points in my GPA. And I feel like that's better with my sport management classes. It's less of core, more like sports marketing, sports psychology, sports admin, and a bunch of other different stuff that's kind of like tied together, which has been helpful. Just be able to like learn the game better and kind of learn my job and around the offices better. But it did take a while to kind of understand my habits and understand what works better. And now I've learned to kind of do piece by piece, whether it's like writing one page of an essay at a time or writing the outline a couple weeks in advance so I can have an idea, or kind of taking notes more. With this year, COVID and with the Zoom learning, it's not the best. Our teachers try and help us out the best we can and kind of make it fun and engaging, but it's still hard to pay attention and not wander off on your phone or go make breakfast or go for a walk or just kind of skip. But I try not to skip many classes. I try and be engaged. Like we're paying so much money for this, so I might as well use it to my advantage. So
100%. And I want to say again, if Gonzaga or anyone is listening, we did bring up the academic stuff. So it wasn't all basketball. It was like probably 95 to 5%, but we got it in there. Cool. Now we can get on to the good stuff, right? Jalen Suggs, UCLA, probably one of the greatest shots, if not for us, from our generation, right? For Gen Z, the greatest shot in March Madness history for us watching live. Kind of maybe where were you sitting exactly when that shot went in? Before we get into all the specifics, maybe where were you?
So one of our managers who I was with, he's in a wheelchair, Matt Graff. Look up his name, his journey, his path. He's one of the coolest dudes ever. Just the way he's worked with us for the past 4 years. His uncle is Dan Munson over in Long Beach. And he's just a great part of our program. And so because of that, we were in the wheelchair handicap section. So we kind of had a little back hallway to kind of like maneuver and move around and whatnot if possible. But we were like, the bench is like right here, and we were like up right where we were kind of like parallel with the guys. So after the game, so we were right there. And then from there it was kind of nerve wracking. Cause like I've been watching UCLA pretty much all season, just because I like to watch. I like hearing Bill Walton talk. I just like hearing his commentary. But I've really enjoyed watching Tiger Campbell and Johnny Juzang, and so being able to actually watch them live and against us, I was like, this is gonna be tough because I like both teams. I'm not gonna not go for my Zags, but I want to see those guys have a good game too. Because if going from the first four to the final four, that's just an amazing journey to have. Like beating Michigan State, beating Alabama, being Michigan on those other teams, like that's crazy. But I knew they were going to be a hard matchup. Even Jaime Jaquez too. He's a crazy player. Like he almost dunked on my boy Joel, which I was mad about. But that game was just insane. I still like kind of like relive it in my mind a little bit, just because like the overtime, like just his block and like just his impact in the game. It's just he has so much energy. Like Jalen, he just has so much just like you kind of get hyped up before you do this. Like he get hyped up before games. He kind of he kind of turned into a superhero. Like they always say it's a 5-on-5 game, but like with him, it's like 6-on-5, just the way he plays, because he just in two spots in one. He reads the ball so well. He knows where to be. He knows the perfect shot. Like, and yes, he's still a freshman. He's still learning. He's gonna grow. But just seeing where he was in August to where he is now is just amazing. And that shot was, I like, because we were in the handicap section, I like was running back and forth, and I was just extremely, it was insane. If I was in a seat, I would have gotten hurt or fallen over the edge because I was going too crazy. But that was amazing. My school teacher, actually, she told me that because she mentioned it, she was like on Wednesday, she was like, how was that game? And everyone was just kind of sad, had their heads down in class, their cameras off. And she was like, honestly, I don't think people will remember that we lost in that championship, but more that UCLA shot. And I feel like that's going to be the remembrance of that tournament. Because I feel like a lot of teams lost, a lot of upsets. But I feel like that game was just one of the craziest games in college basketball history. I feel like that picture of him acting like Kobe is going to be one everywhere for the rest of the time basketball is here, honestly. So
100%. I mean, obviously, I'm thankful that you were in the handicap section instead of in a seat, because it's something you don't think about, right? Because when you watch a game in your basement, right, you have space to run around, you have space to jump up and down.
Yeah.
When you're in an arena, you really can't do that. You really have to kind of, at least hopefully, control yourself. Right? But if you're an opposing fan, it's automatically hands up on top of your head, right? That's just automatic. But if you're happy about it, definitely have to try to make sure no one gets hurt. And then of course, right, you brought up Jalen jumping on the table, kind of acting like Kobe, that whole kind of like immortal moment of that. There are definitely a couple other expressions, right, with the Gonzaga team that maybe kind of I think you guys should almost trademark them, right? And one of them would be Drew Timme, right, with the handlebars, right? And it was just so much fun watching him, right? In some of the games before that, kind of just, you guys go on a big run, 10-0 run, fast break, he'd break it out. And it really just got the excitement going, even for me, obviously not even being from Gonzaga, but it was just like, wow, okay, this team brings the energy, right? Like you said with Jalen, this team brings that energy. Can you kind of talk a little about that? Was he doing that from this, like, when did he start doing that? Where did that kind of originate? Was it in practice? Like, what's the story behind that?
Drew is an interesting character. He is just a very vibrant and colorful human being, and he finds expression in different forms and fashion. And it's like other people find it in their hair or their clothing or whatnot. He finds it in his facial hair. He likes to be the sore thumb or the pink elephant or whatever, the elephant in the room. He likes to just kind of make himself known. I feel like at first it was just kind of the mustache, and he would always shave it as handlebars last year as a joke. But we knew Coach Field wouldn't like that, and he didn't want to be the weird freshman at the time. But I feel like he's kind of grown in his game and stuff to where he can do whatever he wants if he keeps putting up the numbers he has. And I feel like everyone kind of has their own celebration, and his little mustache thing was just kind of like the icing on the top. It's funny, and people. I feel like people have a lot of mixed emotions about him because they think he's cocky and he's not a nice guy, but no, Drew's the nicest dude. And he's from Texas too, so we have a good Texas relationship, and we kind of hold each other accountable and always make sure we're all good and whatnot. And that's with the whole program. But with him in particular, it's fun getting to know him the past couple of years because he's just a very quirky and interesting dude. And I feel like that mustache is going to be celebration for years and years. Like I saw all my friends and they bought, I think the amount of fake mustaches and mustaches grown in Spokane, like Party City probably hit like an all-time high in sales. So many fake mustaches I saw on my Snapchat stories and Instagram stories, and all these dudes were growing it out. And it was just like, I feel like he could be the face of college basketball next year if he stays. If he goes, good for him. If he stays though, I think he could be just another Adam Morrison, another Zion Williamson, another Melo. So I think he could be a big factor in college basketball if he does want to be here next year. So
I can't even imagine people saying anything negative about him. I mean, he's just such a happy guy when he's on the court, right? It's just so much. He looks like he's just having so much fun playing the game. So definitely the handlebar is just for an extension of that, I feel like, or just an expression of that, because you definitely just see it just with every move he makes. Obviously, his focus impeccable, but you watch a guy that's just kind of so in control, just kind of so happy to be out there. It's definitely fun to watch. Obviously, though, like not every game is like that, of course, where everything is just clicking, right? It happened a lot throughout the season, but there's going to be those games where things don't go the way you want to, right? Shots don't always fall. Like you said, maybe everyone will always remember the Suggs shot. And maybe people like maybe for the days following, maybe we'll bring up Baylor a lot. I'm kind of curious though, in terms of just the last game of the season, and losing to Baylor in the championship, maybe what was kind of the preparation going into that game? Obviously it hurt that you guys didn't get to play them early in the season because of the COVID pause. I'm kind of curious, maybe like what maybe transpired maybe before that game, and what did you as a manager, right, preparing, kind of see happen on the floor?
Yeah, I think the guys were a little worn out from the UCLA game, and that's no excuse. But when you saw them play U of H, they didn't miss any shots either there. U of H couldn't get in the paint. We had trouble getting in the paint. They have good shot blockers with Jonathan and Flo, and it was difficult. And they came out and punched us in the mouth like we've been doing to other teams all year. And I thought we could bounce back. We were only down to 10 and a half. We were down by 20 at one point, but we played our butts off, and they just got to a point where I don't think they're that much better than us. I think they made some great shots, and just they were making some amazing 3-pointers. When you're shooting 75% from three, or they were 100 from three at least in the first half, I think at least that's 175. But if you're shooting that from three and you're taking eight shots and you're making them, then it's kind of hard for any team to kind of bounce back from that. And I think I don't think we were scared. I don't think that's not how our team is, but I just think they just played a really awesome game. And it's not, people are asking me like the same questions this past week and trying to get in my take. And it's like, they just played well. They had the game of the century, and they came out, and even their shot blockers, they rebounded better than us. They blocked more shots. They got on more loose balls than us. And the one thing that we work on is just fast-paced offense. We get out and run and get dunks and transition points, and I don't think we had more than 3 or 4 points in transition that game. And when you kind of take that out of our game and you kind of make us run around the perimeter doing the same actions and stuff, we're not any team. So it was a tough loss. I think that it's just going to make us better. I think people who were coming after us saying like, oh, they aren't the team that they were. You got to look. Baylor lost to West Virginia and Kansas, and we beat them. We smoked Kansas, and we beat West Virginia in a close game that they could have won also. So I think that was a big game for us, and it was the national championship. But I still don't hang my my head low, just because I'm proud of my team and what we did this year. And I think 31-1 is unbelievable in any factor of any basketball career, anything. I think if we did play them back when we could have, I think whether we won or lost that game, I feel like it would have maybe tarnished our perfect season earlier, and kind of the story would have been off us for a little bit, and we could have at least gotten a better glimpse of what they could offer. But you look at Davion Mitchell and Maceo and Jared Butler, and they're high quality players. They're NBA players. Tip my hats to them because they're an amazing program. Their transfer portal was amazing. Their coaching staff was amazing. And to have a couple of Zags on that program just kind of makes us look better that we're putting Zags in the right place at the right time. So
I mean, definitely, and obviously, like we said, right, there's so much young talent with Gonzaga. It's not like this is the end of anything, right? You guys have had a great season, and you guys have had great seasons, and you're going to continue to have great seasons. So, of course, there are nights come where shots don't fall and things like that happen. But it's just on to the next one, right? Play where your feet are. And there's of course always going to be the next opportunity. So I'm curious, right? And thinking, right, we spoke about all the experiences, right, that you've had. I'm kind of curious about the future, right? What is the next step kind of like for a manager like yourself, right? You've had all this experience with such an elite program. What is maybe the next year looking for you? The next 2 years, like what does Ryan really want to do?
Yeah, I've definitely been dealing with that same question from other people and myself, and kind of like wondering what I want to do. And I feel like with you and your podcast, I've kind of been curious in podcasts, blogs, and different other stuff just for my personal. But I do want to be a graduate assistant, hopefully in the West Coast somewhere. I don't want to jinx myself, but I think that I have good enough connections with people I know and people in our with our coaching staff and front office that they'll put me in the right position. But my kind of main goal right now is just to finish this month off strong, graduate, have fun with my family, kind of relax a little bit, because it has been a long 4 years. It's been fast, but it's been a long 4 years, and it's going to be sad to leave this place. If they do give me a job, I'll stay, but I'm kind of planning on moving out and kind of going all my life. And I'm still going to be a part of Zags basketball in any way possible. If they do need me, or just when I'm gone, I'm still part of the family. I'll still be watching every game. But I kind of want to move on, maybe to women's basketball. I just think after watching the UConn Baylor game, I think that women's basketball has a really high potential. And I feel like just women's sports in general, and I feel like we kind of overlook them just because of athleticism and money and viewership and whatnot. But I think that they have a lot to offer. And I think women's basketball could be on the rise, or is on the rise, and could be a highly watched sport, hopefully in the future, just because those women work as hard as everyone else in all sports and all capacities and all programs. And I think that'd be a cool way to transition from a college, like a number one college men's team, to go to a top 5 number 1 college women's team also. So that's the main goal. I do want to get my master's. I feel like having one more degree would be better. And I feel like going into school after I graduate would be better than taking a gap year and then kind of getting back in the rhythm of school and whatnot. And it's a master's program, so it's less classes, more projects. But I'm definitely ready to dive in and kind of work on myself in the sports world and kind of see where I go after that.
Absolutely love it. And I'm really excited about this episode specifically because, I mean, like you said, right, you just kind of told us all about all these great 4 years you've had, right? There's so many people, and talking about your future. My freshmen, right? Well, the kids I coach at Xavier, I keep on telling them, right, there's so much opportunity. Everyone was like, how do I get to the sports industry? How can I kind of like, right, how can I continue my love for basketball after high school? If I'm not playing, right, at the level I want to play at. So your path is a really interesting one. And obviously you had a lot of fun doing it, but it's awesome hearing your story because it could definitely inspire the next generation of managers. And I would hope, maybe I'd love to get a text, and I'll definitely let you know if anyone reaches out to me and says, wow, Ryan's story is so cool. I'm interested in that, right? If one of my players takes that, I'll let you know. And I have a feeling I'll let you know about 1 or 2 of those. So definitely, I mean, Ryan, thank you so much for coming on the show. This one was great. Obviously, I mean, hearing about you both just this past season, your last 4 years there, and of course, can't wait to see what you do in the future. So I really appreciate you coming on, and we'll definitely keep in touch.
No, for sure, man. Thank you so much. It's been an awesome pleasure. This is my first podcast interview, and I hope that I'm more in the future and I have more information to kind of tell you and the world. I'm excited just to kind of express that. So thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Thanks for listening to Gen Z Hoops. Make sure to follow, like, and subscribe on Instagram, LinkedIn, and all major social media platforms at Gen Z Hoops. You can tune in and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and every other podcast platform on the planet. Get ready for the next episode.